Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new book. If you saw the video that I posted not too long ago, you know that we are reading Power of the Magdalene, written by Stuart and Joanna Prentis. And this book does start with a bit of an introduction. So I'm going to start reading part 1. And then I will read part 2, and that is a total of 12 pages. And then, of course, we will go video by video, seeing what we can cover under the 25 to 30 minute mark per video so that I'm not breaking it up in too much, but the videos are not too long. So we're going to start out with part 1, the Essene family. So as I said, this book is written in the way of an interview. So we have Joanna and Daniel, and I don't know who Daniel is yet, so we're going to find out more about that. But we're going to start out with a question from Joanna. So have all the Essenes made a vow to return to Earth together at the end of the cycle? And Daniel says, some have gone on to work upon higher levels, but many will return. Old friends will recognize each other, and many a tear of joy will be shed as we meet again. And actually, this is from chapter 44, from the Essenes, Children of the Light. Chapter 1, the story begins. Joanna writes, it all began in 1988 when, with my daughter Tatiana, I set up the Starlight Center in the west of England, a center focusing on healing and the expansion of consciousness. 2 years later, Stuart joined us to help with the development of the center, and he writes about this period. And this is his writing underneath. It was inspiring and fascinating, but also exhausting. A stream of visitors came into the center, mainly from the United States and Australia, but some also from Europe. We had an amazing and mind-expanding time sitting at the feet of internationally respected spiritual teachers and workshop leaders. What I remember most about this time was the big gatherings, when our friends came in to share a meal and talk about our experiences and all the changes that were happening in our lives. It was a wonderful time, full of joy and laughter, and the special events like Anna Mitchell Hedges sharing her crystal skull, a magnified healing workshop with Giselle King, and the 2 fire walks led by Essene were simply magical. When I went on to train as a past life therapist with Ursula Markham, this gave the center a new focus and a whole new cycle of past life regression begin. Although we explored a number of historical periods, our work took a new direction through the gradual accumulation of 7 past life subjects who had lives 2,000 years ago in Israel. Most of these people were Essenes, and they told a remarkable story that ran parallel with the traditional account, but also contained some striking differences. The Essenes were one of the main groups within Judaism at that time. They were idealistic and dedicated people who grouped together in communities well away from the towns and villages. Watching the Essene story unfold was an incredible experience for both of us. Within the 7 subjects, there were 2 pairs of friends, and we were able to put each pair into regression together so that they could dialogue freely. This proved to be a vital part of the process, as it formed a key enabling us to penetrate the Essene veil of secrecy. And if you caught the video I made about this book, in the Essenes, the Children of Light, questions were not answered. There was a lot of getting defensive and, I don't know you, I'm not answering this question. But once they figured out that there were people that were in past life regression that met again, they could put those 2 people together and they would speak, not realizing fully that there were people here and now alive listening. And even though questions were asked of them, a lot of times they would just let the dialogue flow because they were so secretive, but the Essenes would, of course, speak to one another. The Essenes were reluctant to talk openly to other people, but they were quite happy to talk to each other. We watched as the accounts wove together, reinforcing and confirming each other as they painted a picture of Essene life. The information which emerged from this process included the location of the main Essene communities and the existence of a secret core group. There were also fascinating links with the Druids and the first tentative glimpses of work of the female disciples, vital pioneers of the early Christianity, who had been written out of the historical record. The Essenes turned out to be very different from the traditional perception. Yes, they were the strict Essene priests who are represented in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but there were also lay brothers who studied teachings from Egypt, Persia, and Greece, and parents with children who were focusing mainly on the priorities of family life. But it was the practical, emotional, and humorous side of the Essene story that impressed us most. Here were real people with feelings and emotions, and it's this aspect more than any other which lifts them out of history and brings them to life for us. With all this information being revealed, it had become such an interesting story that we felt we would like to communicate it to a wider audience. And this led to our book, The Essenes, Children of the Light, being published in March 2005. Working with past lives continued, including one session in German thanks to a brilliant translator. And soon we were accumulating more new information on Mary Magdalene and the female disciples. The really big breakthrough which transformed the whole process was the dialogue which developed with an angelic being called Alariel. We discovered Alariel through a past life recall, and we described how this happened in Chapter 3. The dialogue with Alariel added a new dimension to the process and opened windows on many areas that we just wouldn't have been able to access otherwise. The wide-ranging nature of the information that emerged from this dialogue, together with its consistency and clarity, revealed many new possibilities. Alariel's evidence enabled us to extend our research and fill in many gaps in the past life record. With the commentaries by Alariel running parallel with the main body of our past life work, we were beginning to cover the ground more thoroughly and in greater depth. And eventually, when we had accumulated a total of 7 past life subjects, we found we had enough material for this second book. Producing this book proved to be a challenging and at times exhilarating journey. Now we invite you to share in this journey, following the clues from the past and exploring the many possibilities that are opening up for the future. Chapter 2, Linking with the Essene Family. Throughout our first book, we used the conventional name Jesus to indicate Jeshua ben Joseph. As our researches in this area continued, it seemed inappropriate to use such a late and Romanized form of his name, especially as he would never have been called Jesus within his own lifetime. So throughout this present book, we have kept to the original Aramaic name of Yeshua, except in direct quotations from written sources. Yeshua, together with the Hebrew form of Yeshua, which is a difference of a J and a Y, or we could say Jeshua and Yeshua, and the name Ben Joseph, literally the son of Joseph, were the names most often used by his contemporaries. They carry an authenticity that no later form an equal. When the Essenes, Children of the Light was published, a number of people commented on the energy which the book contained, an energy which seemed to reach out and link with members of the Essene family who are now in incarnation. The book passed from one friend to another in a very timely and guided way. And soon we were getting emails from new friends living all over the world. Again, we were to meet up with many wonderful and interesting people. One important link was with Kathy Welchman, a therapist who lives only a few miles from us. Kathy trained as a past life therapist with Dolores Cannon, and she takes copies of our book with her when she goes to Mind, Body, Spirit events with her angel and gem essences. From the contacts which Kathy made at these events, other links began to form. One such link was made in the Brighton area with Bina. And when she traveled to Devon for a past life session with Kathy, another interesting piece of the jigsaw fell into place. Bina experienced an Essene life as Little Joseph, who was aged 27 at the time of the crucifixion. He knew Daniel, the center character in our first book, and said that during the period immediately following the crucifixion, both of them tried to write a simple account of the life and teaching of Jeshua. However, in both cases, the scrolls were found and destroyed by the Pharisees. These were the scrolls that were found in the Dead Sea and kept from us by the churches. Apparently, the high priest of the temple in Jerusalem had ordered the destruction of any documents referring to Jeshua. He clearly wished to remove all trace of him from historical record. This answered one of the questions which had been forming in our minds. We knew that according to current scholarship, Mark's Gospel had been written in about 60 to 70 CE, and the other Gospels between that time and 110 CE. See the glossary under AD-BC, it says. But why did it all take so long? Why weren't some simple accounts of the life and teaching of Jeshua starting to circulate during the 2 decades following the crucifixion? Now it has become clear that a number of these accounts were being written, but they were destroyed whenever the Pharisees were able to find them. This discovery has also shed some light on our present lives. It partly explains Stuart's determination to write about this period, if, as Daniel, his attempts to do so had been frustrated. Sorry, I thought I read that wrong. Another important link was made with Gaynell Andrusko in Colorado. Her email in April 2005 was the first we received from a reader of the book. Gaynell writes, "Dear Joanna and Stuart, thank you for the book The Essene's Children of the Light. Your book has important information for mankind and is so helpful for our personal happiness and growth. The subsequent church that evolved since Jesus is so different from Jesus's intentions. Please never be cautious to print this information. I and many others have some knowing inside, and we really appreciate your getting this information to us. Much gratitude, Gaynell Andrusko." Gaynell also gave us a series of most interesting questions, and we will come back to these in Chapter 14. Jim in Brisbane, Australia was another major contact for us. Jim emailed us to say that he had been a minister of religion for 9 years and that Jesus had guided and taught me according to what I could handle. I left the church years ago and my doctrines underwent massive changes. With regard to the healing, up until recent years, I had simply been laying hands on people and releasing the healing energy. Then Jesus showed me another simple way. I would take another's hands in mine. As I began to release energy, I could use my imagination to take them to a higher vibration. I would imagine their body in the next highest dimension, where everything is instantaneous. Once I felt that their body was comfortable and resident in this state, I would again imagine their body restored to wholeness in the ensuing moments and release energy for this. When I felt that this had been achieved, I would imagine them and feel them back into the physical as whole. Imagination works together with the emotion in order to create this truth. Jesus was busy deprogramming me from the past and bringing new challenges and understanding. I had not believed in reincarnation, but after a series of events and articles, I could no longer deny it. I find it curious that while the Orthodox believers of the Christian, Judaic, and Islamic faiths do not believe in reincarnation, it is an accepted doctrine of the spiritual levels of those faiths. The Christian mystic, the Jewish Kabbalist, and the Islamic Sufi all embrace this doctrine. Over the years, I gradually felt that I had a close relationship to Jesus, spanning time. I just knew I was back there with him, somehow. Recently, when I was out in a semi-arid country doing a bit of mining for opal, I was having lucid dreams nightly in the early hours of the morning. Then one night, I went into what I knew as a past life. I was in Essene in the Qumran community, about which I knew things even after I awoke. I was dressed in what appeared as a brown-purple robe, and I relished the study. Jim goes on to say that his daughter has also been having experiences of a life in Qumran, and he intends to write this story and bring it out into the world. Jim says this has all been a profoundly transformative experience for him and has opened up a whole new world to explore. He writes, "As the light increases and awareness grows, we experience joyful triumph of this work. We can no longer afford to feed any sacred cows in the northern paddock. Our minds must open to that which is, for this is not belief in something, it is that which simply is. We must each take responsibility for our personal journey. The universe will always bring to you the answers you seek, and today we are surrounded by the clouds of witnesses from many dimensions and places in the universe, many of whom are also able to assist us. Your vibration in soul and body will rise in line with the unlimitedness of your thought." We love the phrase sacred cows in the northern paddock. In its direct and very Australian way, this sums up the whole problem of entrenched resistance to change. About the same time we made a link with Margaret, and at about the same time we made a link with Margaret. She had been born in Australia but was living in London, and during February 2007, she came to Devon to do a past life session with Joanna. It took a little while for Margaret to get into her life as a woman living in Israel 2,000 years ago, but there was a definite shift in energy when she started talking about Jeshua. Margaret: "Whenever I think about him, tears come and there is emotion, and there are times when I feel completely overwhelmed by this huge feeling of love. There's this huge emotion, and there's this part of me that feels the need to teach because it's just so simple. It's so simple. I'm just here to teach people to love each other. And it's just such a strong feeling. So many didn't understand. I just feel so connected. You can see so clearly. It's like being home." All these links contributed information and support, with a growing number of interconnections between friends who had shared a deep and meaningful life focused around Jeshua. That life had been intense and dramatic, and sometimes the rediscovery of it was just as dramatic, as the closeness of the soul group made itself felt, and the link with Jeshua worked its magic in the heart. Amidst all this activity, our past life work continued, with one subject coming from as far away as Germany, thanks to our friend Isabel Zaplana, who proved to be a brilliant translator. And when 7 subjects had completed their regressions, we reviewed the information and discovered that we had gathered enough material for this second book. All right, so we will stop there. And in part 2, we're going to talk about meeting the angelic being that joined them and assisted them in giving information, which is the angel Ilariel. And I actually have heard of Ilariel. You won't hear of many angels in religious aspects, but in learning more about how many angels there are and all of the archangels, you learn there is a host of them, and they are just waiting to help you. You just have to ask. We have free will. So the archangels don't step in too much unless you ask them, and your guardian angels and ancestors and guides, they have to be asked. They can step in to a certain point, but they do have to be asked to sort of step in fully. So in part 2, we will read about the angelic guide, Ilariel. Thank you all so very much for joining me for this little introduction and amazing way that this book was culminated and put together. When things are meant to happen, man, they just come together, and the universe certainly does know exactly what it's doing. And there are no mistakes and there are no misfires in timing. I love you all so much, and I will see you for part 2 of this book. Until then, take care of you, take care of those around you. Bye bye.